I've not been recording. Wow, mistake. So I've started recording now. So, and does anyone have any question?
Yes, I do have a question. Okay, now, I just want to confirm. Okay, can I ask?
Yeah, ask now. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to confirm, like, balance, the self-dot balance that is here.
Yes.
Does it mean that the variables, the food and clothing variables, they also have, as they have their name, they also have like another parameter like attached to them, like the balance too?
Exactly. They also have another property called balance. Yeah.
Okay, so this, so you can also like print food dot balance too.
Exactly. So let's do that. Okay. Let me even put it in a better way. Let me start with, I said print. Let me use an F string, and I'll say food. Put it in a curly brace. Food dot name budget has food dot balance. Let me put a $sign here. So this is just for the food object. First of all, let us print and see what it gives us. I clear my screen and I run it again. Let me run. So what do we have here? It says food budget has $0. So this dot name and this dot balance are properties. They've become properties of food. Why? Because food was created from budget class, and budget class has name and balance as its property. So it just inherited, the object inherited the properties from the class.
Okay, sorry, I have another question.
All right, go ahead.
Aside, okay, so right now in a class,
yeah,
we can only assign string variables and digits.
Yeah, you can assign string variables, you can assign digits to a class. Okay. No, it just depends. It's not like you can also use the dictionary, you can also use a list, depending on what you want to do.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to know, like,
what you say?
Depends on what we want to do. I said depending on what we want to do.
Exactly. Like me, when I was coding it on my own, I made use of one. I created one more thing, and I call it history. Self.history, and I made it a list. I made it a list because I wanted it to track whatever transaction goes on with my budget, but it is not included in the tax. So let us not go ahead of ourselves.
So far. Yeah. Okay, so no problem. Let's keep going.
All right. So we are done with step 1. Everybody is okay. Now let's move to step 2. I'll create another file. I'll call it, let me call it copy 2. Copy 2.py. Okay. Now, okay. Let me take out the instruction from step 2 again. So the instruction for step 2, I'll paste it up here. It says, for step 2, the object that we created now, the object should allow for depositing funds to each of the categories. The object should allow for depositing funds to each category. Now, how do we make our objects, this object food and clothing, how do we make them depositing? Now, is that coming from me?
I don't know.
Please, if someone should trace where it's coming from, so it doesn't.
I'll mute my mic now.
Okay. Please unmute yourself. Mute yourself so that let us know where it's coming from. Okay, all right.
It's
So
from
let's
Chioma.
continue. Hello? All right, let's continue. So I'm in, let me take this into here. So I'm in the second part now. I want to make our food and our clothing budget.
Sorry, George. Sorry, George.
Okay.
Chioma, please mute your mic. Chioma, please mute
Yeah, she
your
has, she
mic.
has. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. So now, you know, we have to what we have to do here now for our budget to handle depositing money. We have to create a deposit method inside the class. So let me create a deposit method now. We use the def keyword to start a method. So def deposit. Def deposit, and as usual, it's going to take self. Now, the next thing that deposit should take, deposit, you know what I want to deposit? We have to what? We have to indicate the amount you are depositing. So a deposit, we only take, when we are using it in an object, we only have to pass in an amount that we want to deposit. This self, remember, self belongs to the class. So we don't pass in anything there. But self must always be the first thing, because these methods we are creating are instance methods, but that one is another topic for another day. Just know that when we want to use it, we only have to pass an amount if we want to use the deposit method. So we have created a deposit method. Now, what should this deposit method do? We write it under it now. So a deposit method should do this. It should say, let us get the balance from our class. Self.balance, it should be equal to the amount that we pass into it. So self.balance, our balance, remember our balance before is 0. This is it here, it's 0 here, but it will now be equal to the new amount that we pass into it. So after doing that, we have to send a return statement, because this is not an initialize, this is not an init method. So every other method aside from the init method must have a return statement. So let us send a return statement, because if it doesn't have a return statement, even if we use it, we'll not be able to tell if it actually worked or not. So we want it to return something to us. And what should it return? It should return this, to return the balance for us. Self.balance. I think I wrote it better here in a comprehensible way. I said that I use an F string here. So I want you to return a good statement. So remember, this is an F string now. We use F string when we want to pass in variables inside a sentence, a string. So what you should return, your new balance is what? The self.balance now. The new value for our balance in self.name. Let me change this to name. Self.name budget. So after we have deposited the money, it's going to return this information for us. It's going to tell us the new balance, and it's going to tell us where we deposited that, where the new balance is, like where we deposited that money. So now let's do one more thing. Let me copy this here. And let me paste it here. So the first thing I'll do to test that everything is working is that, as usual, I will first of all instantiate objects from this class. Now, I know we have made changes to the class. So as usual, we instantiate objects from the class. We create a food object and a clothing object from the budget class. Now, after we've created these two objects, let us now deposit money into the objects. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to, this statement there says food.deposit 2,000 naira. Then rather dollars, because I'm using dollars. So why let me put dollars here. Why the second statement says clothing dot deposit $5,000. So we want to deposit $2,000 into food dot clothing and $5,000 into clothing. $2,000 into food and $5,000 into clothing budgets. So let me create a demarcation so that when it works, we know it actually works. I'll save it and then I will run it. Now, this is the output here. What we are seeing here is the output here. And the output says your new balance is $2,000 in food budget, and your new balance is $5,000 in the clothing budget. So this one here, if you deposited 2,000 into the food budget, and we deposited 5,000 into the clothing budget. Any question, please? Any question?
No.
All right. So we move. If it's clear to everyone, let's move on to step 3. So let me create a new file for step 3. I'll save it. Now, let me continue from step 2 into step 3. Clear step 2. So step 3 now. Right. Then over here, let me bring on my step 3. Close this one. Close this one. Put this one like this. Okay. Let me get the instruction from step 3. Now, these instructions are not my instructions. I have already copied it out from Zuriboard. So that's why. But just to show that what I'm saying is correct, let me save this first and go to Zuriboard. So we know where we are right now. So if I go back to Zuriboard, what we have done so far is that we have created a budget class. We have instantiated objects from the budget class. Then, now these objects we have instantiated are different budget categories. We have a food budget. We have a clothing budget so far. I don't want to talk about. I can also create another object for entertainment, but just food and clothing alone we can understand. But when you want to finally write your code, include entertainment into it. It's pretty straightforward. So now we have done that. We have done that first part. Now we have also done some things. We've made our budget able to deposit funds. We've been able to deposit funds into our budgets. Yeah. We've deposited funds into clothing and we deposited funds into food. That's why it says funds to each categories. So we'll be able to deposit into food and we're able to deposit into clothing. Now the next, number 2 says withdrawing funds from each category. Let us see how we can withdraw from each category now. So let me go back to VS Code, which is what I wrote here, withdrawing from funds from each category. So I'm done with init, I'm done with deposits. Let me push these ones down. Now, yeah, it seems our time is almost up. The 40 minutes limit. So in about 4 minutes or so, we'll have to log out and come back. Let me start by creating a withdraw method. So I will start with the def keyword, def withdraw. Now, as usual, it's going to take self. Then what parameters is our withdraw going to take? Remember, if we are like a bank or something, if we are withdrawing, we withdraw what? Money or an amount, isn't it? So our withdraw method is going to take an amount that we want to withdraw from the class or the object. So it's going to take the amount. Now, when it takes the amount, what should we do with the amount now? We should first of all get our balance first of all. So we say self.balance. The balance we have currently, we are going to now what? Subtract it. We now say is equal to self dot balance minus amount. So what we did here now is that
Please,
okay, come, yeah, your question.
sorry, the amount in deposits and the amount in withdrawal,
Yeah.
will it not like clash, or it doesn't matter?
No, it won't clash. It depends. You will see the way I will use it now. You know, remember we first of all deposit before we withdraw. Oh yeah. Okay, I think I'm getting what you're saying. You know, normally there's supposed to be an if statement because we cannot, if there is no money in the balance, then we cannot withdraw. So before we withdraw, because what I did here is that I'm withdrawing now. I'm subtracting the balance from the amount. So I'll first of all say that if self.balance is less than the amount we want to withdraw, we should say that what? We should return a statement that says insufficient funds. That's if the amount we want to withdraw is way bigger than the, or a little bit bigger than what we have in our balance. Else, if it is not like that, like if our balance is greater than the amount we want to withdraw, now we can now withdraw. So let's withdraw, which is this here. So I say self.balance is equals to self.balance minus the amount. This thing I did here is the same thing as doing self.balance minus equals to amount. This is the same thing as doing this, but I feel this one is more readable. So self.balance is equals to self.balance minus the amount we want to withdraw. Now, after we finish withdrawing, let us now give back an information. Let's now tell the user, let's give him feedback. So let me call it a variable feedback. Now this variable is just a variable I'm just creating at this moment here under the if statement. So it will not exist anywhere. It's just to hold. I want to use it to hold something, an information that I will pass to the user. So it's a string variable. First, let me put a demarcation in it. Then I will make it move to a new line, and I write feedback again. Let me concatenate. Concatenation means I want to continue. Since I told you to move to a new line, I want to also continue. It's still part of it. So now I want to give feedback. I will say that transaction was successful. Transaction was successful. Move to a new line again. It's still one sentence. I'm just breaking it down into several lines to make it look neat. So transaction was successful. Then we should now output the latest balance. So we now say your new balance is, let me put a $sign and then a curly bracket to hold the variable self.balance. Your new balance is self.balance in which budget? Let me put the budget in self.name budget. In self.name budget. So I've written the feedback correctly. Now let us return this feedback. So return the variable feedback. All right, just a minute. Let me set up my mic very well. All right, so now you can still hear me very well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let me run this. Let me run this now. So I've created a withdraw function. Let me use it. So how do we use it? First of all, to test it, we instantiate objects from it. We instantiated food. We've instantiated what? Clothing. The next thing we do is what? We are going to what? Make deposits. So we are depositing 2,000 into food, and we are depositing 5,000 for clothing. Now, what's the next thing we should do again? The next thing we should do after depositing, we can now withdraw. So let us withdraw from food. So we say food dot, no, let me use the print statement so that it's going to print out something from us. So I'll now say inside the print, it should print out food, it should carry out this thing for us, food dot deposit, rather withdraw, food dot withdraw. Now, remember our withdraw is going to take one argument rather, and that argument is the amount we want to withdraw. So let us do something to test if our if statement here is working for food. Remember that food, we deposited just 2,000 into food. Let us see if we can withdraw 3,000 from food. Okay, it should not be a string, it should be an integer. Then let us now correctly do for clothing. So clothing dot withdraw. Let us withdraw, since we've deposited 5,000, let us withdraw 2,000 from it. Now we see our output now. So let's run and see the information we get. So I'm going to press this run button. Sorry, now for us to clearly, let me clear my screen and run it again. So what's the first thing? Because this is where our app starts from. What here is a prototype. This is where our app starts from. So the first thing we did is we instantiated the food budget, we instantiated the clothing budget. Then we deposited 2,000 into food and 5,000 into clothing. That's this feedback here. It says after depositing, it says your new balance is 2,000 in food and your new balance is 5,000 in clothing. Stop there. Now, the next thing we did was what? We wanted to withdraw 3,000 from food. This food that we withdraw 3,000, it gave us what? Insufficient funds. Because we only have 2,000, we cannot withdraw 3,000 from it. Now, let us try for clothing. Clothing that we withdraw 2,000. It told us that our transaction was successful. Your new balance is $3,000 in the clothing budget. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear so far.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody that has any questions should feel free at any point to ask me. So our meeting is almost less than 1 minute. Let us log out and come back in. All right.
All right, I have a concern.
Okay. You have a question? All right. When we come back, we'll answer it. So,
Let's log back in now. It's a concern, kind of.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's log back in then.